Hello everyone, I'm Muth, the film guy. Don't believe it? Look it up. And I'm here to review King Kong, the 1933 classic, and its sequel. Oh boy. So, without further ado, let's get into this. So the movie begins with an overture. Now, if you know what an overture is, old movies usually do this all the time, and this was to show how big in scale your movie was. Like, this is how much money you made. Like, you have an overture here. You have music playing to show what's going to be doing, and the overture works in of itself. Now, so the movie begins with the Great Depression in New York City, and how you can tell this was made during the Great Depression? Everyone is fucking poor. I'm not joking. This movie, you can tell that these guys were very, very, very poor. um, and of course, Carl Denham, the director of the whole expedition with his captain Eaglehorn and the first mate. Sorry about that. And his first mate Jack Driscoll. Jack Driscoll basically are going on the voyage of their lifetimes. And because, Carl Denham hired someone who can find a girl for him, he goes out and finds one. And he basically he finds one named Fay Ray, awfully known as Andero. Andero is practically is the first leading lady of this movie. Played by Fay Ray, and everybody else in this movie is just fantastic in this movie, I have to admit it. And so they're off to the island that they're gonna shoot Carl Denham's movie. And so they make it to the island, and pretty much they're kind of stopped by the chief, who, oh boy. Well, we're gonna get back to the natives at some point. We're gonna talk about it at a later point. And so they go to the natives, and the natives are like, hey, you can't be here, but we want that girl. We want that Andero girl. She's blonde, and, oh boy. So pretty much they're like, no, you can't have her, so we're going to go back to the ship. Later on that night, they steal her from the ship. Yeah. So they take her back to the island, and they tie her up onto pedestals, and pretty much King Kong is released out. And Kong is basically scary. And to be honest with you, the introduction of King Kong in this movie is very well handled. It's very well done. The music done by Max Steiner in this movie is so well done. It brings adventure, romance, and it brings really a mystery to the whole entire thing. So pretty much Kong takes, and then pretty much he goes off towards where he usually goes. The people on the ship, who basically are Carl Denham and just a whole bunch and a team of people, basically go off, and they basically they just basically go follow them, and they come across like a Stegosaurus and Mosasaurus, I believe. I'm sorry. And a Brachiosaurus, which apparently eats people. I don't know. I don't think that's realistically true, but hey, whatever, So, pretty much, Kong basically puts Andero down just for a little bit, and then he runs back to the log, because he now knows that people are basically following him. And so the people on the log it's a famous scene. We all know what happens. Kong basically throws off people off the log here and there, so that way they can just drop off. And it would lead to a cut scene called the Spider Pit sequence, which apparently was one of the most terrifying sequences in the movie. Which, I mean, if you've seen the Peter Jackson remake, you know that scene is terrifying. Just the fact that giant bugs are eating people. But it makes more sense the reason why they cut it out, mostly because it was very graphic, and also because those people would have been dead because they fell off the log down onto a very hard, rocky surface. And you're telling me that they all survived that? No, man. No. No, man. So, pretty much, Kong basically fights a T-Rex, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, often known as the meat eater in the book. Yeah, I know. And it's one of the most iconic sequences in this movie. I mean, this whole entire movie has iconic sequences. It's the same thing as The Shining. The Shining has iconic sequences. You know, just everything about it is just iconic, you know? And so pretty much they fight and Kong wins. We all know this. Kong basically rips the T-Rex's like bottom jaw off. And now, oh boy. So Kong basically takes Pandero back up to his home, up on top of the Skull Mountain. And well, this scene was actually kind of cut in the original. Kong basically strips her a bit naked. Yeah, listen, this is artistic. I don't know. He starts he I don't know. This kind of does make it hard, but you are supposed to root for Kong in this. Don't get me wrong. You know, he's just a big ape. You have to admit it. He's just a big ape. He doesn't know any better. He's been living on the island for years. But seriously though, and of course, Andero basically reacts accordingly and basically wants to be let go by this horny ape. Oh boy. Jack Driscoll basically saves her from the top of the mountain, but Kong basically has to fight a pteranodon before basically losing them. They run back to the wall and pretty much they meet back with Carl Denham. Yeah, Carl Denham basically didn't go on the log because, well, actually originally the log scene was actually a scene with a different movie intent, where apparently prisoners were going to basically like follow Kong, and just it was a little different, trust me. But you know, and plus that was really originally the log sequence was a demo. This is how you can tell that this was made back during the 30s. If you had a demo reel and it looked really good and it fit into the story, you use that. You just use it. And so, you know, pretty much that's just pretty much it. And so Khan basically chases them back. And so pretty much they lock the doors and they try to basically keep him away. And another iconic sequence is where Khan basically breaks down the door or opens it. Yeah, a lot of islanders basically die in this. The village gets destroyed, and this was actually a real thing. One of the actors who played one of the natives almost got drowned because the foot had to go on top of his face, and the face had to go into the mud, which he almost drowned, mind you. He almost suffocated pretty much. And damn, yeah, you can tell that time has changed over the years. But of course, they basically take Kong and pretty much, well, Kong basically gets knocked out by knockout gas and pretty much is taken back to New York. How? They don't explain it. Later movies, they basically do explain it as either they build a huge raft for him and tied him down to it, or they put him into a big, huge ship for him to be in. Either way, they didn't know. They don't really explain it. Either they ran out of budget for it, or they just really wanted to get to the action, which they literally do. Kong gets sent back to New York and has become a big huge show. You can tell this was before PETA. Oh boy. And boy. Well, Kong escapes, and Havoc is released onto New York. Pretty much the Big Apple almost gets destroyed. The whole entire thing is actually a really well done sequence where he takes down a train and he climbs up the Empire State Building where he finally meets his demise by the airplanes. Yeah, oh boy. Now, we have to remember that this came out during its time. Racism was a pretty big deal, and it still is. It still is. It's still prevalent. And by the way that I talked about a person almost drowning by the foot of Kong, I mean, I don't think the original intent was to be racist. I don't think that's the whole entire original point of the movie. I think they just wanted to make a really, really good movie. I mean, you can find it anywhere in like multiple books, like how Kong is supposed to be an allegory for racism, and you could be right. And hey, you know what? I don't think that was the original intent of the movie makers, which that usually happens all the time. I highly recommend you go ahead and you go watch the Omniviewers um, thing on this. In fact, I highly recommend you watch some of his other stuff about Kong. His stuff actually is really well done. But you have to remember that this came out during a time just for its time. This movie was made for its time, but you have to admit that it really helped the movie industry out. The movie did fantastically. And because it did so fantastically, they decided to make a sequel. Literally a week later after the movie's release and the box office numbers have come back to them. And they're like, make a sequel. And so they did. On the same year, 1933. Oh yeah, that's right. So that means that they had to spend either a week, maybe a month or so, maybe even a day to write the script for the sequel to King Kong, one of the biggest box office hits of the United States. And you have to make it at least as good as the first one. And you have to do it by Christmas. That means you had to either write the script first and then you make the initial movie before the special effects. You make the initial movie, which I believe was like around like 2 weeks or something. Wow. And not only did you have to have that, but you also had to have special effects be done by Christmas. You have to realize how long and tedious the stop motion really is. Willis O'Brien came back for this movie just because the original directors and original producers really liked his special effects, but you have to realize that King Kong had like 10 years of development and a lot of stuff had to go into it and a lot of special effects had to be made for it, and that's why the special effects looks pretty okay in the original. For the time it looked fantastic, but here he looks like it's Rankin Bass level here. And here's what I mean by this. In film terms, in animation terms, the stop motion animation, or just animation in general, you have numbers to rate how many frames you make. One frame means that you basically make 24 frames for a second, which you draw one second of animation, it's 24 frames, right? Twos are basically where you take two pictures of the same animation, as in you take the same still image 2 times, and then you move the item and then you take 2 more, and then it looks really not so good, but you could still tell that it's moving. Right? That's what technically that they did in Son of Kong, which we're going to talk about. Hi. So it begins literally a few months after Kong's fall from the Empire State Building. And Carl Denham is pretty much out of work, and he's being sent numerous amounts of bills and just he's pretty much on the run here. He's pretty much in trouble with the law, which would make sense because realistically, if you brought over something that dangerous, you would take responsibility for that, right? So pretty much he's basically like, oh shit, I have to get out of here. And so he gets out of there. Back to Captain Eaglehorn, who is the only which is practically the only one of the only main characters back. The other character is a guy as a cook named Charlie. Remember when I said that this movie came out during its time? Well, you should watch the movie to understand what I'm talking about, because, oh boy, yeah. Charlie is Chinese. If you know what, if you know what I mean, in the 30s. I mean, I like Charlie in this movie, but not. But we're not talking about that. So pretty much they go on and find jobs. They go ahead and send shipments over by sea, and they try to basically make enough money back so that way they can pay off everything that happened, like all the damages done that Kong did happen to do. And so pretty much they go to a place where they meet the person who gave Carl Denham the map to Skull Island. Not only did they find the guy who basically gave them the map, but also a girl who had a father who died by the same guy who made the who made the map. Unfortunately for this movie was really, really rushed. You can tell. Max Steiner did return for this movie, but this is not his best work. Come on. This movie is very much like a goofball comedy, and there's little bits and pieces of the original Kong in it, but it doesn't save it enough for it, in my opinion. But anyways, so they go back to the island with realization that there could be treasure on the island, but then there's mutiny. So Carl Denham, Englehorn, and the girl basically and Charlie basically are thrown off of the ship to go to Skull Island. But then the person who basically made the map, basically who was running the mutiny, basically gets thrown overboard. Serves him right. So they basically go to Kong's Island, and so they meet the chief, who doesn't want them there, which makes complete sense. They destroyed his fucking village! I mean, seriously, they released Kong, and not only did they release Kong, but they killed Kong, their only god of their island. You have to realize how bad they look right now. Oh. And so, pretty much, they go to another part of the island, where they finally find the Son of Kong, 47 minutes in. Which makes sense, because you have to realize that the special effects had to be done at a very short time period, and 47 minutes makes sense because obviously they couldn't finish some of the special effects. Poor Willis O'Brien, man. Oh. So pretty much they find baby Kong, and apparently in some sources Carl Denham named him a name, but from what I can tell from the movie, he doesn't. So he just calls him Baby Kong or Kong. So, yeah. So, pretty much, Baby Kong basically helps him out a lot. And so, Englehorn, Charlie, and the guy who made the map basically get trapped by by a triceratops, or I forgot its name, but by a dinosaur, and they're stuck there for the whole night. Oh boy. And so pretty much Carl Denham and this girl basically have a love thing going on. It's as weird as freaking Ann Darrow and Jack Driscoll's love in the original. Seriously, Jack Driscoll just says, "Hey, I think I love you." Okay, okay, great, cool. Yeah. So pretty much, everyone basically comes back to where the temple is, but Kong basically puts down the hole, the wall that pretty much was holding the door closed for so long. And well, they get the treasure, and well, there's a dragon. There was a bear earlier, and then there was a dragon. I mean, I understand that this is an island of mystery and danger, but why is there a dragon? Not only is it a dragon, but it's a dragon that comes into the temple. It would make sense if the dragon was like holding on to it, like it was like a reference to the Hobbit, you know, like Smaug or something like that. And it would make sense, right? But no, the dragon just comes right in and is like, "Hey, what are you doing on my treasure? What are you all doing on my land?" He's like an old man who basically like doesn't like anybody who's on their property. And so Baby Kong basically fights the thing. And just like the T-Rex, he puts up a pretty good fight. You have to admit it. That's pretty good fighting there, kid. So so Kong's victorious, and so they basically get the treasure and they take him out of there. But Carl Denham stays back, and Kong pretty much, Baby Kong basically like scares away the guy who basically made the map, and pretty much they all try to run away. He tries to run away, but is stopped by a sea serpent, which actually was a part of the original movie, original draft, but it was originally going to be in the movie. So technically, you know. So pretty much Carl Denham and Kong basically are back in the temple, but the island is having an earthquake and a terrible storm happens, and the island is sinking. Oh my. Oh. I bet the chief is now like thinking, what did I do to deserve this? You have to think, like, everyone is dead. The islanders are dead. And so is the last of Kong's family. Oh no. And Carl Denham is saved by Baby Kong. So, you know, that's good. And they get picked up by a ship later on, pretty much a cruise ship after that. And that's the end of it. There's a bit of romance between the girl and Carl Denham. The guy who basically made the map is dead. Everyone else is probably having a good time now. So that was Son of Kong and the original King Kong. I love the first movie. And the reason why I love the first movie is because the story is very well done. The acting, on the other hand, is a bit meh, for my opinion. But this is the 30s, so you have to expect that. But the special effects was the one thing that really captivated this whole movie. Nobody really cared for the love story between Jack and and Darrow. They really cared for Ann Darrow and King Kong, even though Ann Darrow is just screaming her lungs out about this giant ape that could possibly eat her. You know, like, you have to think that there was originally a scene where there would be bones all over the ground. That means that the islanders have been sending in girls to be eaten. But they didn't do it, and they just really wanted a really nice romance between Kong and Darrow. But I think that this movie really is a good movie. It's the one thing that really inspired movies. You have to think about it. It sure it came out during its time. You have to admit it. It came out during its time, and that's just the one thing that you have to accept. It came out during its time, but you have to admit that it did inspire a whole bunch of filmmakers, like George Lucas and 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 Steven Spielberg. And I'm talking about Steven Spielberg because he basically made Jurassic Park, which was the next level of special effects. We're talking about Willis O'Brien, who originally made dinosaurs come to life in the 1920s back in The Lost World. Now we're going towards Steven Spielberg and the people at ILM who basically made dinosaurs scientifically accurate, near scientific accuracy, of real dinosaurs living and walking and breathing. We're talking like Kong itself is a big, huge inspiration for everything. Hell, Kong was the inspiration for Godzilla. Yeah, I'm not joking. And hey, without King Kong, we wouldn't have Ray Harryhausen, who made fantastic special effects like the Clash of the Titans, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, and just a whole and Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, which in of itself was a big, huge influence on Godzilla. I am not. This movie, King Kong, is a huge fucking deal. Like, nobody remembers Son of Kong. I mean, don't get me wrong. Son of Kong is an okay movie. It's not a great movie like the first one, and it has its moments of very cutesy stuff, but this movie, King Kong, the original 1933 movie, is an influence of everything to come. Without King Kong, we wouldn't have great special effects. Special effects like Ray Harryhausen's amazing special effects, to Star Wars, to fucking, all this was because of Kong and a whole bunch of people who believed in making a movie be just a movie, just a place for you to just escape New York. This came out during the time of the Great Depression. This was a time when people just wanted to just stop thinking about the Great Depression and just watch a movie. There was no real message behind King Kong. It was just a movie to give you a movie. And that is a movie that I will accept. And sure, let's just accept it. It came out during its time. Let's just get over it and let's move on with our lives. You just can't get over that. It's still a great film. Nearly 80 to 90 years later, this movie is praised for a reason by many fans who love the new Peter Jackson King Kong. Hell, Peter Jackson is a huge fan of King Kong. Hell, he actually owns the armature of King Kong, one of the armatures of King Kong. And without all this, we wouldn't. Yeah. Oh. So that brings up the question. Who do you think will win in 2021? Godzilla or Kong? I believe it'd be Team Godzilla. Team Godzilla, baby. Yeah. Yeah, I'm always Team Godzilla, man. Always. Anyways. I highly recommend you go check out the Omniverse review on just mini Kong reviews. There's this one where he actually did a review on a novel for the book of King Kong, where it's a sequel to King Kong, and it's the decisive version of King Kong. I highly recommend you go check out his review on it. And hey, if you want to check out the actual book, go ahead. I'm sure there's something out there for you. Go ahead, go find it. It's probably at some old library or something. Probably collecting a whole bunch of dust or something. And Big Jack Films. I highly recommend you go check out Big Jack Films. Even though this whole entire channel is about Godzilla. and his is about King Kong. There's nothing wrong with me talking about the great ape myself. And plus, he was the inspiration for Godzilla. I have to thank him for that. Anyways, I'm Muth, film guy. Don't believe it? Look it up. And, well, remember, tomorrow I will be releasing out a review for the 1976 remake of Dino De Laurentiis' King Kong. See you all later. Bless. It was beauty that killed the beast. That was pretty badly made. I'm sorry. Oh boy. Oh!